And we're back, YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. As always, I appreciate that. And today let's talk about Halcyon 6 Lightspeed Edition. Now, Halcyon 6 is a management strategy RPG space game, so it borrows a lot of elements from other genres. Now, the game is built on the foundations of the 2016 game Halcyon 6 Starbase Commander, and the Lightspeed Edition sort of adds a lot of new content to that base game. Now, in this game, you take control over a space station. There isn't much of a story going on. Yes, the station is the last human refuge, but it's not very clear what's next, so don't expect like this big narrative in this game, because there isn't. I do like the retro-style, pixelated, very clear and colorful graphics, which is a novelty in a genre of base building and 4X strategy games that is dominated by a boring aesthetic and an abundance of spreadsheets and numbers. And I just, I think a lot of developers who make these strategy games should really opt for a more pleasing to the eye, more clear and colorful aesthetic, because that makes the game so much more fun to play. Now, the main gameplay loop here is gathering resources, building your base, and fighting enemies. So let's go over these three gameplay mechanics. Now, first you have to do, in order to gather resources, you have to recruit an officer. And officers can perform tasks, so you can only have so many officers, so you need to prioritize. Now, next you build a spaceship and send it out with your officer to the surrounding colonies and orbital stations that will generate additional resources for your base. Now, resources are crew, dark matter, and materials. You need those to develop new upgrades for the space station and also to build bigger ships, upgrade the ships with the latest weaponry and so forth. Now, as this is going on, these officers gain experience, and you can upgrade them as well with different space and ground combat powers. But we'll talk about that later. Now, as you're doing this whole gathering of resources and building your base, you will be harassed by pirates and aliens alike. Now, I do like the UI in this game. It's very easy to navigate from the galaxy screen to the shipyard screen to the research tree to the construction screen. It's all very clear and it doesn't overfeed you with information. Yet another very good thing about this game. And again, I would like to urge developers who are making strategy games to keep it simple, because gamers like it simple, and it's just a lot more fun to play a game that has clear graphics and not too much information feed to you. Still, in this game there are some clickable icons that are sort of stacked up atop of one another, which is a bit annoying at times. There are a bunch of objectives to accomplish, like going after distress call or hunting down pirates. You can also choose to side with one specific pirate. And you can really tell that developers had a lot of fun creating this game. And there's a lot of humor in the dialogue as you are conversing with alien races and pirates alike. So, again, this is a very rare ingredient in games. It's humor. We need more games with humor. So far, so good, right? It's a very good game. But the biggest problem I have with this game is that the whole gameplay loop of gathering, building, and fighting becomes a bit stale after a while, because the game expects you to juggle these different tasks all at the same time, and the combat is relentless. And the combat feels superficial at times. For instance, as you are racing to get tier 2 or 3 ships, all of a sudden the pirates and the aliens spawn tier 2 and 3 ships as well. So this feels superficial. I understand it because it's a way of keeping the player on his or her toes, but it also feels like the AI is cheating at times. Now, this all wouldn't be such a problem if the combat was actually interesting. Unfortunately, it's a bit repetitive at times. Now, ships come in different shapes and sizes and have different powers, like offensive and defensive. There are also ships that can buff your other ships and heal them. And the idea behind the combat is that you need to exploit the weaknesses of the enemy ships. But this whole system doesn't really pan out very well. It's more of a trial and error sort of thing, and most of the time you'll probably settle for the one power that does the most damage. Furthermore, combat itself is limited to max 3 against 3 ships, or 3 little dudes against 3 aliens, and when you're in ground combat, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you have multiple ships just sitting idly at your space station. But I do like the gameplay, but I can also see that it can wear players down, because the combat is so frequent, it's relentless, the resource gathering can be a grind, and there's just a lack of story to keep you going on the long run. But in all honesty, I did have a fun time playing this game, although in small bursts. You know, a couple of hours at a time, and then just quit, and the next day, a couple of hours, because of the repetitiveness of it all. So it's just, but still, it's fun, it is great, it gives you that feeling of progression as you're playing it. And this is definitely worth your money for an indie game, and I'll post a link to the game in the description below. I like it, it is worth your time, but in small bursts. So, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.